morning, everybody. So yeah, my name's Christian James. I'm the MD of a data-driven creative agency called IF, and we are based in Manchester. We've been around for 14 years. I am also chair of the MPA, which is a non-profit association representing media, digital and creative businesses in Greater Manchester. So that's me.
Brilliant, thank you. Lisa, I'll come to you next, if that's okay.
Thanks, Sam. Hello, everybody. So I'm founder of Roland Dransfield PR. I set the business up nearly 25 years ago now in Manchester. We've got an office in London, which we set up just before the pandemic, which was fantastic timing. And they were about to announce a partnership with an LA agency, which we're about to announce just before the pandemic too. So that's been postponed for 8 months. We're very much at the heart of the Greater Manchester community. I also sit on the board of the MPA, and we've been actively involved over the past 25 years, making relationships, making collaborations and being at the heart of the community. And our business is about really helping people to create profits with purpose now. We're working a lot with businesses that have got deep social consciences, or we're helping them to find them if they've not got one already, because we think that's a piece of work that's more important now than ever.
Brilliant, thanks Lisa. And Sophie, I'll just come to you, please.
Hi, morning everybody. I'm Sophie, I'm Head of Marketing at AO. So I look after all of our brand strategy, advertising, social content side of marketing, and AO, for those who've not heard of us, we're an electricals company kind of grown out of appliances. AO stands for Appliances Online, although we don't talk about that because we actually sell a lot more than just appliances. At its heart, a Bolton born and bred business. We've also got a central Manchester office, and yeah, the kind of northwest is very much the home of that business.
Brilliant, thank you. And I think we're certainly going to come to talk to you about that sort of the ownership of that sort of the Manchester brand a little bit later on. But before we do that, I think let's give some context to this. And Christian, I think you're going to kick us off, aren't you, really? And just tell us a little bit about what is a regional brand. Give us some sort of set the scene for us, if you will.
All right, well, I'll do my best. So I think within the context of what we're going to be discussing today, there's probably 2, maybe 3 areas that are relevant here. Firstly, when we're talking about regional brands, and particularly with the businesses that are on this call today, we're probably talking about businesses that have an authentic regional personality, and those personality traits are genuinely embedded in their brand. There's also those businesses who want to trade in other parts of the either this country or the world, and they will adopt either adapt their brand to better trade and be more connected, more engaging with that specific region that they're attempting to do business with. So that's kind of one area. I think the second area is then, and absolutely I think prescient for today, and kind of like in about 10 minutes when we find out in the tier lottery where we've landed, it's about the regions that we live in, and in particular Manchester for us in terms of its identity. And I think that's more about the strength of the culture within a region, and the depth of feeling and buy-in and belief of the people that either work there, live there, or have a sense of belonging to it. Now, we're talking about Manchester, and there are 38 of them across the world. A little bit of research. There's 38 Manchesters across the world, and I don't know whether we've got any prizes, but anyone guess how many are in America? Well, the answer is 34 of them. But this is the original of all of them. So I think we're talking about there's 2 different aspects of this. There's the strength of the regional brand, and then there's the ability and the authenticity with which brands then associate with that regional brand, that are very, very relevant for us today, and seemingly becoming more relevant.
Brilliant, thank you. I'll tell you what, if we don't come away with anything else today, that is a really, really useful
factoid. It's a factoid, yeah.
Absolutely, I'm going to use that a lot when I talk to people now. What do you think then, just so because we are talking about Manchester obviously today, I think we are going to talk on a broader scale with regards to regional brands, but what do you think the Manchester brand is? What are the values that sit behind that?
Okay, you gave me a little bit of advance warning on this, and I absolutely capped myself because it's such a massive question. But you know, there's been some brilliant people who've looked at this question before. I mean, from a personal point of view, we moved up here as a family when I was 10. And yeah, I've been to school here. I went to school around in Manchester, moved away, worked abroad for a few years. But when it came to time to settle down, family, and sort of build a career, we chose Manchester. And it was around the time that Peter Saville had coined the term original Manchester. And whilst there have been other sort of descriptions, that one really resonates with me, the idea of the original modern city. And I think, you know, our agency has spent, 14 years helping brands to develop, as the sort of previous guy from Virgin Money was talking about, finding their voice. We've been, that's, it's very much what we do here at the IF agency. And when we look at the brand voice, we're very much evaluating it on rational and emotional sort of cultural levels. And original modern, I think it stacks up on both rational and emotional. The rational side of things, there are so many firsts that this city claims to, really important, globally significant firsts that the city buys into, whether that's the, going way back to the sort of progressive corn laws and the ability that the city gave for anyone to do trade here. Didn't matter what your background was, didn't matter whether you were male or female, and those at the time were incredibly progressive. So there's a real originality in that, and so there's a sort of there's lots of rationality. And then of course there's the graphene, and there's the baby computer, and all that really clear rational identifiers. But the emotional side of things, the cultural side, the personality traits are also incredibly strong. And I think, we as a collective have a strong affinity with them. It's a place where innovation and enterprise, technology and commerce has always lived hand in hand. And that creates, I think, whilst London maybe, and I hate sort of using it as a reference, but it's massive and it's on our doorstep. London is a great place to work, no question. But if you want to live in the best city on the planet, it's Manchester. Certainly for me, anyway.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more either. That's exactly my thoughts. And to be honest, I think actually we're probably a slightly biased panel, because I do believe that yeah. We all believed in that. And I think Lisa, you're a sort of shining example really of this as well, just with regards to Roland Dransfield, as you told me the other day, is just about to hit its 25th year. So, you've been working since it's so those 25 years about building that brand, and certainly the sort of stronghold within Manchester. How have you seen the Manchester brand develop and evolve over those years?
Well, when I first started in Manchester, actually my first job was on Salford Crescent. I worked for a one-man band. I managed to get a job when there were no jobs to be had. And when you looked out the windows, all the buildings were black. And we were kind of coming out of post-industrial decline, and we had Strange Ways riots, not much else. We had a fantastic music scene and some good clubs, and that was about it. There were no decent jobs. There was certainly no investment, and we weren't on a world stage. But despite that, there was the brand, and Christian's talked about some of the things that Manchester stands for, and there was honesty, warmth, that community, collaboration, resilience, and that incredible sense of humour that Manchester's famous for. In 2020, kind of 30 years later, we're in a situation where I believe that the brand has evolved, but I believe that your brand is basically intrinsically linked with your values. So if your values stay the same, then your brand stays the same, but your offer changes. So in 2020, we're obviously coming out of a major economic slump. Yesterday, I was on the launch of Sir Richard Leese's business sounding board, the Economic Recovery Plan. And I would just say, if anyone's feeling despondent today, and we might feel even more despondent in a few minutes when we know what tiers we're going to be in. But read that report, because you will feel better after reading the report. Because what the report shows is the fact that the asset base that we've got now as a city is, we are on a world stage. We have got the resources that we need. If we remember the resources we had post-COVID, we've still got them now, and we've got a really clear route map forward. So we should all take comfort from what is in that report. You know, it's based around collaboration, it's based around urban realm, it's based around health and innovation, and it's all about keeping people in education, retaining jobs, creating new jobs, and it's built around the sectors that we've got. You know, technology, we've got an incredible arts and culture sector, arts and culture, technology, and all that kind of stuff. So we're in a good place, and still our values are resilience, collaboration, confidence, grit, determination, and we've still got a sense of humour despite everything that we've gone through. So for me, that shows you that if you keep your values at the heart of what you do, your brand will stay the same, but your offer can differ over a period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a couple of certainly that aspect of collaboration, and we've discussed, all three of us discussed this on our call in the run up to this, was that collaborative element. And there's a couple of initiatives that have come out of the recovery plan that I know you've been a real driving force behind. So I'm just going to use this opportunity actually for maybe talk a little bit more about the 1GM campaign, which is obviously the Greater Manchester one, and also the United City campaign. Two huge campaigns, but it's about that collaborative element, isn't it? And it's about businesses supporting everybody else within the city regions and the Greater Manchester region as well, and what they can do to help businesses and people get through this really, really tough unprecedented times.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what we've got as a city, and other cities in the UK and across the world, you know, acknowledge this, that we've got an amazing collaboration between public, private, and also voluntary sectors. So that's a privilege to work with. I mean, we set up the United City with a group of us from that sounding board. So Gary Neville, Chris Oglesby from Bruntwood, Will Lewis from OBI, Frank McKenna Downtown in Business. And that group enables us to have an independent voice from the politicians. So it means that we can say stuff that doesn't necessarily chime with the stuff they've got to be saying. And obviously we've all watched the conversations and the messaging from Andy and Sir Richard, and they're quite different across GM and the city, Manchester as a city centre. What we're doing has been kind of ratified by both Andy and Sir Richard, because they acknowledge that we can be a bit edgier with our messaging, that we can call for stuff that they perhaps can't call for. I mean, clearly, I mean, it's going to be a private members organisation. We were overwhelmed because we launched it, and within 24 hours, we've now got over 100 members. We've got over £250,000 of the funds pledged, and those funds are going to help us to put research into place. We're working with Metronomics, who are probably the cleverest people I've ever come across, and they're Manchester based. So evidence around health data, giving us confidence as a city that we can actually bring people back into the city centre safely. It's also around lobbying business leaders to do that. I think if you're a business leader, working from home looks very different to you in Alderley Edge than it does to an 18-year-old apprentice who's got about an inch between the bed and the desk where they work every day. So that's really important from a health and wellbeing point of view. So we're trying to navigate that so we can message the fact that business leaders can bring their people back into the city centre, even if it's at 50 or 60% capacity, and they've got a duty to do so. Government can't necessarily say that. So that's behind a lot of the work that we'll be doing. And part of those funds that we've raised will be to contribute towards the 1GM fund. So 1GM, we launched with Andy a few weeks ago. It's still finding its feet at the moment, and we're working around the infrastructure, but essentially that's a hardship fund for people in GM, our community of people, individuals and businesses who've fallen through the cracks in terms of what the government's handed out in support. So again, you know, got private and public sector working together to try and give the economy the boost it needs, get people back in the city centre, and also make sure that we look after everybody that the government isn't.
Brilliant, thank you. I think for me, and when it comes to sort of regional brand values, it's kind of the 3 C's, like commitment, collaboration and community are really kind of the integral parts of what Manchester is all about. And Sophie, I'm going to come over to you in a second, because I really want to talk about sort of taking that wider and overseas, and actually, but I do want to talk about Roland Dransfield and the We Built This City podcast, because that is very much all about, it's embedded in the Manchester regional identity. But from a business focus, what was the reasoning behind that, and what kind of an impact has that had on you as a business, and that identity that you've created there?
Well, I came up with the idea, it was last November, I was ill in bed, and obviously you don't have the luxury of being ill, so I kind of, at that time I thought, I was just thinking about how much Manchester has given to me personally, and it's been, it's more than I could have ever asked for. So I wanted to find a way of being able to retell those stories around the kind of amazing Mancunians, we say born, bred or adopted, who put the heart into Greater Manchester, and there's loads of them. I mean, we could never cover all of those fantastic people. But it was to celebrate that, and then also to try and dig into some of the stuff that you wouldn't necessarily ask about. So about people's values, how did the relationships they created help them do what they did for the city, and what legacy do they want to leave? And they're all things that are very important to us as a brand. We came up with the idea, and then we launched it literally as we went into lockdown. We couldn't have predicted what 2020 was going to look like, but it was even more relevant, I think, because of all of those values that come across in that podcast. The feedback has been that that's given a lot of people a lot of hope, it's reminded them, it's reconnected them with the city they couldn't even go into. People were missing the city, they couldn't collaborate. And so to hear those stories, I think people said that they felt very much that every week when one came out, they felt that they got that injection of Mancness, I suppose. And it's been downloaded across the world, so it's really clear there's a lot of Mancunian lovers around the globe. But as a business, I think what it's done is emphasised where we stand. It emphasises the fact that we've been at the heart of that for 25 years. And although it was never done as a new business builder, it was done as for my kids to when I'm long gone, to go, and Mum did some work that we could relate to, I suppose, because I'm not sure they can now. But it has definitely put us at the heart of Manchester. And ironically, in lockdown, we lost over 50% of our business overnight because of a lot of the work we do is in the sectors that shut down. And this has actually, even though it's a lot of work on top of what we were trying to do, it's brought so much more business to us, and particularly businesses from actually around the world and also from outside of Manchester, who see that Manchester is that launch pad that they want to build back from, and they're coming to us because they feel that we've got those connections and relationships and understand the fabric of the city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I can identify with that, and that's brilliant. And it is about attracting, retaining that talent and interest in our city region. And I know the panel after this one are sort of going to take this to the next level. We're talking about the creation of those regional identities and how we put them on a global scale and market Manchester on the international stage. Sophie, you're not born and bred Mancunian, but you are an adopted one. So I just want to talk to you perhaps a little bit about kind of the Manchester values and that identity, and whether this conversation really resonates with you with regards to your decision to stay here.
Yeah, absolutely. So my family are all Manchester through and through, but I was born down south and raised in the Midlands. But it was almost in some ways subconscious, but I think always there kind of in family values that Manchester was always kind of a homeland. So when it came to deciding on universities and then staying, it was almost not a decision, I think, because actually I probably found that I identified more with the city and the diversity and the kind of energy of people and the city itself, compared to anywhere else that I'd experienced. And actually, sometimes I think it takes leaving a city. So I moved to Liverpool for 5 years and had a fantastic time and loved the city. But then you kind of start wondering, this isn't, never saw it as my home and never saw it as part of my future. And actually then, start looking at moving back to Manchester and kind of take that's what part of what took me over to AO as a business. But yeah, it's hard to describe sometimes. Actually, I think the place gets into your blood. The people are there, and I'm a City fan at heart. You know, there was no choice about that in my family, so that's another reason to come and be close and experience everything.
Brilliant, thank you. And with regards to sort of obviously your role within AO, and AO being born and bred Bolton business, as you've already mentioned, how important is it that you embed that sort of identity within the business, and how does it translate when we go further afield?
Yeah, it's really interesting thinking about it. It's almost, so AO's values are they're quite simple values. They're we care, we're smart, we're fun, and there's a fourth one that I always forget, but they're the three important ones. You know, that, like I say, they're quite simple values, but I think they're quite northern values at their heart. And actually, having those as our company values, that is what we hire against. That's what we look for when we're bringing people in, kind of at all levels. You know, if the most talented person doesn't fit those values and doesn't represent those values, then they're not right for AO. And that's kind of really at the core of the business. It's the people that drive it forward, and it's the people that make us different to a market where ultimately we sell the same as lots as other retailers out there. But the core belief is that we do it better because we care about what we're doing. So yeah, it's just completely embedded into the business's identity, and even sort of being owned as we are now by a PLC and operating in quite a corporate manner. It's still, they've managed to retain that feeling, and it still feels like a family business. You know, it helps that we've got the founder as CEO again, but it's there anyway, and I think it's quite an unusual blend of a very large organisation that doesn't feel like a very large organisation, and I think that comes from the values that are there. And as we scale and move into other countries potentially, or other areas, I could see, you know, we can have offices anywhere, but that those values remain the same, and they're the Manchester values and the northern values that would never change, regardless of where, you know, where we're operating.
And so do you see that as a positive, in the sense of, you know, how other countries or certainly other regions will resonate, or, you know, kind of identify with some of that? You see it as a positive, only a positive for the business? Yeah, definitely. So, you know, the people caring about doing a good job is the right thing for the customer. So it's incredibly customer centric in our thinking all the way through the business. You know, we pulled back our marketing activity in the summer because we were selling so much that the delivery drivers couldn't keep up. So, you know, it would be very easy, we could have sold more, but actually the service to the customer was being impacted, and we weren't happy with that. So actually the business takes that longer term view, that it's more important that we you know, protect the reputation of the company, and we don't overcommit ourselves, and some of that required kind of pulling back and not promoting ourselves as heavily when we're providing quite an essential product for a lot of people, and a service that they can't get elsewhere at that point in time. And I think that remains the same, you know, as the business scales and whatever market that we're operating in. It's that caring, I think, isn't it? You know, yeah. It genuinely kind of having that passion, and really believing that what we're doing is the right thing for the customer. Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay. Is that, I mean, this, and then I'll throw this open to all of the panel, really, so I don't mind who wants to go first on it, in the sense that I absolutely get it. I understand that the feeling of community, of that collaboration, of that of galvanising the masses within Manchester, and us all getting behind that and feeling the value of being fundamentally a big part of all of that. But at what point is the tipping point, I suppose, is my question, in the sense that, should there be a pause for caution? Do we need to be careful that we don't go too far, that actually what it serves to do is to potentially alienate us and set us apart from perhaps the rest of the UK, or certainly the rest of the world in some senses? Christian, you've got your hand up, so you can go first.
No, it's not. Finding out that we're in tier 3 is probably no surprise to anybody. I'm absolutely happy with the idea of Manchester being some kind of outlaw region at the moment. You not to get too political or show my anger and frustration too clearly, but this patronising and inept government have systematically penalised the North whilst protecting their own backyards. And I think it's like, the analogy I'd give is like having a school bully, and we can either buddy up to the school bully, or we can look at the strengths that we have as a region, the talent that we've got within it, and we can have the confidence to go our own way. So for me, I don't think there is a limit to the strength of the regional brand that we have developed and its recognition on the global scale, let alone a UK-wide scale. We've definitely got the capabilities here, and we definitely have the right values. There is a relentless blend of hard work and ideas that you get in Manchester, and that, the ideas are great, but you've got to have that passion, as the guys have been talking about before, and that relentless determination and the sense of humour. I think you can. I don't think Manchester warms to people who take themselves too seriously, and I think it's a wonderful trait. What's that line? You can walk with kings but never lose the common touch, I think it was in that's the If poem, hence I remembered it. So I think we should push it, we should embrace the unique identity that we've got. It's absolutely relevant for the world that we live in today, that combination of the inquisitiveness and the open-mindedness, the collaboration and the community that we've got. So I think we should be pushing it as hard and as far as possible.
I couldn't agree with you more. Lisa, you were shaking, you were nodding your head. I don't know whether you want to come in and add anything more to that. I think you might be on, are you on mute?
I don't up my game with a proper microphone. I don't know how to use it. No, I mean, we've been outlaws for centuries, haven't we? So why change now? And I think if we change your values every time there's a different situation, then you don't have any values. And, you shouldn't pick your values off the shelf for us to fit a situation. So we've gone into this. Yes, we've had our wrists slapped, because Andy didn't get us painted into a corner, and there's a price to pay. But wouldn't we rather pay the price than, like Christian said, give in to the bullies? And I think, in actual fact, the values are the outcome, and we stuck by them. And we'll get through it, but we've stood our corner like we always do, and we wouldn't want it any different.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I couldn't agree with more. And I think, I've never forgotten when I attended a conference down in, it was in Cardiff actually, a City UK conference 2 years ago. And a lot of people heard that I was from Manchester. And the comments that they made only ever seemed to come from a sort of a slightly green-eyed perspective, or actually a very admirable perspective, in the sense of, actually, do you know what, Manchester just seems to get things done and it cracks on. And you're very proud of the work that you do. And I think in that sense, I think absolutely we should be proud Mancunians, and we should be proud to stand out from the crowd, because, we do it with honour, we do it with integrity and authenticity, all of those things that Christine, I think you mentioned earlier on before as well. So just very quickly, because we are overrunning on time. Is there any sort of classic examples, or for the businesses that are here and attending today, of who's done it absolutely right, and any advice that you might give to businesses to make sure that they can adopt the regional brand values and really kind of make it work for them and their businesses?
I think Sophie's I know she's on the panel here, but I think AO is a brilliant example. And Sophie, you talk about that. I think it's absolutely about authenticity and relevance. I think it's about a natural embeddedness of that regional identity. I think Warburtons have done a brilliant job over the years. It probably only really started happening for them in terms of that clear association when Peter Kay brought the Bolton humour. And kind of got it amplified out to the nation and beyond. But they're it's bread at the end of the day. And I think this is the point for anyone who's got a business in a region and they're thinking, well, maybe we're trying to find our voice. It's bread. It's every day. It's down to earth. It's family. And those are values that are absolutely rooted in the region, and therefore were very natural for the family baker, even though they are massive, you know, to develop and amplify through their brand. And it's the same, I think, when you look at, I don't know, Yorkshire tea is, for me, you know, it's another example where everything that their brand stands for and everything you experience with it represents the same values that are embedded in their region. It's that strength that they've got, and it's the yes, it's the no nonsense and the down to earth. The strength side of things, it's embedded in the product. You can't actually make a weak cup of Yorkshire tea. It's impossible. But that strength and that clarity and that pride is in the packaging, and it's obviously in all the communications. But I think you've got to be careful. And I think my sort of final bit, and I'll bug off, is, you know, it's got to be distinct. Your brand is, if you're looking for your voice, it's got to be distinctive. It's got to be relevant to the audiences you're influencing. It's got to be true. And that last thing, even, you know, more than ever, is the most important evaluation. You know, consumers have got the power now. They're sophisticated, they're smart, they'll smell bullshit the moment you post it. So, you know, if you're looking for your voice, that voice has to be genuine. If it's got a genuine Mancunian twang in your voice, brilliant, use it, and it will transfer across the UK and beyond very successfully. But it has to be relevant. There's no point in using that if it's not relevant to what you do. And I think AO have done it. I think AO do it brilliantly. So I'd love to hear Sophie talking about that.
You know, I think I completely agree. I think authenticity is the key to it. So I guess the way that AO do it is by embedding, as I said before, kind of embedding heartland northern values in, as you know, as our kind of, it's not even as our brand identity, it's our company identity and values. But the value is not to be northern, you know, it's more about, and I think that's what enables it to stay authentic. So actually, regardless of where people come from, they take in those values that are so important, allow that authenticity. I always think sometimes it's always easy to think of brands that don't do it as well, and I think sometimes just mentioning a city name kind of quite often just feels a bit cliche. It was a bit, you know, oh, we can do digital out of home now, and you can change them for whatever city it is. I'm like, well, so what? Actually, take it further than that, and those sorts of things. I don't know. It's a bit like when mail shots at first became a thing, like, I don't know, however many years ago, and it could actually have a letter, "Dear Miss Parfitt," and I'm like, it's irrelevant, the fact that you're referencing a city. Take it further than that. I think that, you know, brands that do it well, it's actually properly understand the people of the area that they're talking to. And I think if you don't understand that, it's a very dangerous game to play. You know, I don't think AO would ever change our values because we're operating in a different region of the UK, a different country. Yeah, the example that comes to mind at the moment is Uber Eats. Hear their radio advertising quite a lot at the moment, and it just irritates me that I've got a guy with a clearly London accent talking about Manchester, and with no context. I was like, it doesn't make sense. I don't care that you're mentioning places to eat in Manchester. It just irritates me a little bit. But I understand why they're doing it. You know, that's their kind of wider campaign. They've got quite a distinctive character in their sort of overarching messaging. So I understand what they're trying to do. It just annoys me a little bit. I kind of think just mention national restaurants. It's fine. I know what you're doing.
That's it, and nobody tries to be fooled, do they? So let's face it, that's it. And I'm glad that you brought that people element into it, because Lisa, I think you'll agree with me that's a fundamental part that underpins the recovery strategy that was launched yesterday. And I'm sure we can send around the links to the details about that. We are completely out of time. I've overrun. I'm getting told off from everybody. So just a quick thank you to Lisa, Sophie, Christian. Thank you for all of your input today. It was really, really, really great discussion. Thank you so much. My heart is bursting with pride with how proud we are of the Manchester identity. And I hope you all have a great afternoon. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
you.